The Vaudren Empire's war fleet hung in the void like a crown of thorns, 12,000 vessels strong, their hulls gleaming with the promise of annihilation. Admiral Thexnar stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Inevitable Consequence, his four arms clasped behind his segmented back, mandibles clicking with satisfaction as he surveyed the primitive blue world below. "Transmit the ultimatum," he commanded, his voice reverberating through the translation matrix. "Let these humans understand their position in the natural order." The communications officer, a young Valdrin still bright with ambition, initiated the broadcast. It would reach every screen, every device, every communication node on the planet's surface. The message had been carefully crafted by the Empire's finest intimidation specialists, designed to break the spirit of resistance before a single shot was fired. The Thexnar had done this 73 times before. 73 worlds, 73 species. All had capitulated within hours of witnessing the vast armada that now darkened Earth's skies. Most had surrendered immediately. A few had attempted token resistance. All had fallen. The ultimatum was simple: submit completely or face extinction. They had 12 of their hours to decide. At the United Nations emergency session in Geneva, representatives from every nation on Earth watched the alien broadcast in stunned silence. The holographic display showed the Admiral's imposing form, each word translated into every human language simultaneously. "People of Earth," the translation began, "you are now subjects of the Vaudren Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration. You will surrender all weapons. You will surrender all resources. You will surrender all autonomy. You have been judged primitive, weak, and unworthy of self-governance. Resist, and your species will be eradicated. Your compliance is not requested. It is demanded." The transmission showed images of previous conquests, cities burning, populations fleeing, worlds subjugated. The camera panned across the massive fleet, zooming in on weapon batteries that could glass continents. "You have 12 hours, Thexnar concluded. "Choose wisely. The Vaudren Empire has never been defied. You will not be the first." The transmission ended. For a moment, absolute silence filled the chamber. Then someone laughed. It started small, a snort from the Russian delegate, then a chuckle from the Australian representative. Within seconds, the entire assembly was roaring with laughter. The Brazilian ambassador was wiping tears from his eyes. The Japanese envoy was trying to maintain composure and failing. Even the usually stoic British delegate was shaking with suppressed mirth. Secretary General Maria Santos struggled to restore order, but she herself kept breaking into smiles. "Ladies and gentlemen, please," she managed between her own fits of laughter. This is supposed to be a serious situation." "Did he actually say, 'choose wisely'?" the Canadian representative wheezed. "Like some villain from a bad movie?" "The lighting on his ship," someone else called out. "Did anyone else notice? It's all dramatic and backlit. They have mood lighting for their intimidation broadcasts." The American president, joining via secure video link, was equally amused. "Folks, I just got off the phone with our top military brass. They're asking if we should feel insulted that the aliens think this would actually work." 12 hours, the French delegate said, affecting a dramatic voice. "The Vaudren Empire has never been defied." This triggered another wave of laughter. It took nearly 20 minutes for order to be restored. Aboard the Inevitable Consequence, Thexnar watched the intercepted human communications with growing confusion. "They're laughing?" his tactical officer said, antenna twitching with uncertainty. "Admiral, I don't understand. Every species responds with fear at this stage. Fear, then anger, then resignation. But laughter?" The Thexnar's mandibles ground together. A stress response, perhaps. Some species experience neural dysfunction when confronted with overwhelming odds. Their laughter is merely a malfunction. "Should we proceed to the demonstration phase, Admiral? Fire upon one of their cities to prove our seriousness?" "No," Thexnar said, though uncertainty crept into his voice for the first time in decades. "We follow protocol. They have 12 hours. We shall see if they laugh when the deadline approaches." But the humans kept laughing. 6 hours into the ultimatum, the Internet had done what the Internet does best, turned the alien invasion into memes. Images of Admiral Thexnar with captions like, "My sleep paralysis demon giving me life advice," and "POV, your Uber driver is taking a different route," spread across social media. Someone had auto-tuned his ultimatum into a surprisingly catchy song. A teenager in Seoul had created a filter that put Thexnar's face on people's selfies. The hashtag Valdrin Ultimatum was trending worldwide, but not with fear, with mockery. Meanwhile, in military installations across the globe, a very different response was taking shape. At NORAD, General Patricia Morrison reviewed the tactical data with her staff. "Let's break down what we actually know about these clowns," she said, pulling up holographic displays. "Their ships are big, impressive, clearly designed to look scary. But has anyone noticed what they haven't done?" Her intelligence chief, Colonel David Chen, nodded. "No jamming of our communications, no cyber attacks, no EMP bursts, no nothing. They jumped into our system, parked in orbit, sent us their little video, and that's it." "Their formation is textbook," added Commander Sarah Okonkwo, the tactical analyst. "And I mean that as an insult. It's literally in a parade formation. They're positioned for maximum visual impact, not combat efficiency. Half their point defense sectors are overlapping, which means they're creating their own blind spots." Morrison smiled grimly. "They've done this before, clearly. But they've never done it against someone who could actually fight back, have they?" At China's Strategic Defense Command, similar conversations were happening. At Russia's Northern Fleet headquarters. At European Defense Force planning rooms. At military bases in India, Brazil, Japan, South Korea, and dozens of other nations. Humanity was doing what it had done for millennia when faced with a threat, sizing up the enemy, looking for weaknesses, and preparing for war. With 3 hours left on the ultimatum, the UN sent its response. Not a surrender, not even a defiant rejection. Instead, they sent a video that would later be studied in xenopsychology courses across the galaxy as a perfect example of human psychological warfare. Secretary General Santos appeared on screen, sitting casually at a desk, looking more amused than frightened. "Admiral Thexnar," she began, "thank you for your colorful presentation. We've reviewed your demands, and we have some questions before we provide our answer. First, regarding your claim of technological superiority, your ships appear to use fusion-based propulsion systems. Impressive for your level of development. We're curious why you haven't discovered zero-point energy extraction yet. Our scientists cracked that 30 years ago. Are your researchers having trouble with the quantum resonance calculations? We'd be happy to share our notes." She paused, letting that sink in. "Second, your weapon systems. Those look like particle beam arrays, yes?
Magnetically accelerated ionized plasma? We used those in our second-generation orbital defense platforms. They were adequate. We've since moved on to quantum disruption weapons, but I suppose the particle beams have a certain retro charm.
Another pause. Third, and this is just a personal curiosity, the dramatic lighting on your bridge, is that a cultural thing? It seems like it would make it very difficult to read your instruments. Our military consultants are concerned that you might strain your eyes. Do the Valdren have good vision in low light conditions, or is this more of an aesthetic choice? Santos leaned forward, her expression shifting from amused to deadly serious. But here's the real issue, Admiral. You've made a fundamental error in your assessment of humanity. You scanned our planet and saw our cities, our populations, our civilian infrastructure. You cataloged our resources. You measured our technological emissions. And you concluded we were weak, primitive, easy prey. But you missed something crucial. Do you know what you missed, Admiral? She stood up, and the camera pulled back to reveal that she wasn't in an office. She was in a military command center, surrounded by screens showing military installations across Earth. You miss the fact that humanity hasn't had a world war in over a century, not because we're peaceful, but because we became too good at killing each other. We didn't abandon warfare, Admiral. We perfected it, then aimed it at the stars because we knew something like you would eventually show up. You asked for our answer? Here it is. No, we will not surrender. We will not submit. And if you want this planet, you're going to have to take it from us. Good luck with that. The transmission ended. The mood on the inevitable consequence shifted immediately from confidence to confusion, then to alarm. She's bluffing, Thexnar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Enhanced interrogation of their information networks shows they have no space-based military of significance. A few primitive satellites, some unmanned probes, nothing that could threaten the fleet. Admiral, the sensor operator called out, antenna rigid with stress. I'm picking up new energy signatures. Multiple locations across the planet. They're powering up. Underground facilities. Ocean-based installations. They were shielded before, but now... The main display lit up with hundreds of new contacts. What am I looking at? The Thixnar demanded. Weapon batteries, sir. Railgun installations. Energy weapon arrays. Missile silos. Admiral, the missiles are showing exotic energy signatures. These aren't chemical rockets. They're using matter-antimatter annihilation drives. Impossible. That technology requires... Sir, new contacts. Ships decloaking. The display suddenly swarmed with red markers. Ships emerged from stealth all around the Valdren fleet. Not as many ships, maybe 1,000 total, but their energy signatures were intense, focused, deadly. Where did they come from? The Thexnar's voice rose to a screech. They were here the whole time, sir. Cloaked, waiting. The asteroid belt, the moons of their outer planets, even in low orbit disguised as debris. Admiral, we're surrounded. A new transmission came through. This time it wasn't a politician, it was a military officer. Admiral James Hawthorne of the United Earth Defense Force appeared on screen in full uniform, the stars behind him showing he was in space, not on the planet's surface. Admiral Thexnar, Hawthorne said with a predatory smile, let me educate you on a concept we humans value highly, proportional response. You brought 12,000 ships to intimidate us? That's cute. Let me show you what we built in the 100 years since we unified our planet and realized we weren't alone in the universe. The human ships powered up their weapons. Those contacts you're seeing, That's just our home defense fleet. We have 3 more fleets out there in the dark, returning from Deep Space Patrol. They'll be here in 6 hours. Now, you have a choice to make, and I'll give you the same timeline you gave us. 12 hours. Power down your weapons, prepare to be boarded, and submit to detention while we figure out what to do with you. Or try to fight and learn why humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare before we even left our planet. Hawthorne leaned closer to the camera. And just so you don't think I'm bluffing like you assumed Santos was, he nodded to someone off-screen. One of the human ships fired a single shot. The quantum disruption beam crossed the distance in an instant and struck a Valdran cruiser on the fleet's periphery. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. Its molecular bonds dissolved at the quantum level, matter scattering into its component atoms. That was a warning shot, Hawthorne said. 1 ship, 1 shot. We have 1,000 ships in range right now, each with enough firepower to do that 50 times before reloading. Do the math, Admiral. Your move. On the bridge of the inevitable consequence, panic spread like wildfire. "Shields up! Battle formation!" Vexnar ordered, but his tactical officer was shaking his head. "Sir, we can't form up effectively. We're in display formation, remember? It'll take hours to reorganize for actual combat, and the humans have us bracketed. If we try to maneuver, we'll be vulnerable during the transition." "Then fire! Fire on the nearest human vessel!" The weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, if we fire first, they'll respond with overwhelming force. We can't win this engagement." "How can we not win? We outnumber them 12 to 1. "Admiral," the sensor operator said quietly, "I've been analyzing their ships. They're smaller than ours, yes, but their power-to-mass ratio it's orders of magnitude beyond our capabilities. Each of their vessels is generating enough power to run one of our dreadnoughts. And those quantum weapons, we have no defense against them. Our shields are designed for particle beams and kinetic weapons. These quantum disruption weapons ignore conventional defenses entirely." The Knar stared at the display, watching as human ships maneuvered with casual precision around his fleet. They weren't even targeting the Valdran vessels anymore. They were just flying, demonstrating their superiority with every casual maneuver. His ships were like lumbering behemoths. Theirs moved like dancers. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible? They're primitives. Our intelligence showed what they wanted us to see," his intelligence officer admitted, mandibles trembling. "Admiral, I've been reviewing the data. Their planetary emissions, their technology signatures, it was all calibrated to make them appear less advanced than they are. They weren't hiding their military from us. They were baiting us." "Baiting us? Why?" The intelligence officer pulled up communication intercepts, human transmissions from the past few hours, social media posts, news broadcasts, military communications. "They were testing us, sir, testing our capabilities, our tactics, our psychology. The humans have been alone in their corner of space, preparing for first contact for over a century, but they didn't know what they'd face. So when we arrived and immediately tried to intimidate them, they saw an opportunity. Let the aggressive aliens show their hand, see what they're capable of, learn their tactics, and then crush us," Thexnar finished, his voice hollow. Another transmission came through. This time, it was a recorded message, broadcast on all frequencies. It showed a human military historian standing in what appeared to be a museum. "Greetings, Valdran Empire," the historian said cheerfully. "While your fleet contemplates its options, we thought we'd share a bit of human history. You see, you made a critical error in judgment. You assumed that because we haven't engaged in large-scale warfare recently, we had forgotten how to fight. Let me show you something." The camera panned across museum displays showing weapons from across human history: stone axes, bronze swords, iron spears, crossbows, gunpowder weapons, machine guns, tanks, aircraft, nuclear weapons. "Humanity has been at war with itself for our entire existence," the historian continued. "We are so good at killing each other that we had to invent entirely new fields of mathematics just to optimize our destruction. Game theory, operations research, systems analysis. We turned murder into a science, and then we applied that science with industrial efficiency." The display shifted to show footage from human wars, not the sanitized version, the real thing. Trenches filled with bodies, cities reduced to rubble, mushroom clouds rising over devastation. We created weapons so terrible that we had to make rules about not using them. We invented the concept of war crimes because we kept discovering new horrors that crossed the line even for us. And when we finally unified our planet, we didn't abandon this knowledge. We just pointed it outward. The camera zoomed in on the historian's face. "You wanted to intimidate us with your big ships and your threats? Admiral, we invented total war. We invented mutually assured destruction. We invented the doctrine of overwhelming force. We've fought wars of extinction against our own species and decided they were too horrible to continue. And you thought 12,000 ships and a sternly worded ultimatum would make us surrender?" The historian laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. "The reason we laughed at your threat, Admiral, is because we've been threatened by experts. We've been threatened by the best, by ourselves. And we're still here. So no, we're not impressed by your fleet. We're not scared of your weapons. We're not intimidated by your empire. Because if you had really understood humanity, you would have known one crucial fact: we don't respond well to bullies." The Thexnar slumped in his command chair, the weight of his failure crushing down on him. 73 worlds, 73 conquests, and now complete and total defeat without firing a single shot. "Communications," he said quietly. "Open a channel to the human admiral. I wish to negotiate terms." "Sir," his weapons officer protested, "the Empire has never surrendered. We should fight. We should survive," Thexnar interrupted, "and learn from this. There will be no negotiation of terms. There will be surrender, unconditional, because the alternative is annihilation, and I will not sacrifice this entire fleet for pride." The channel opened. Admiral Hawthorne appeared on screen, his expression neutral. "Admiral Hawthorne," Thexnar said, forcing the words out, "the Valdrin fleet surrenders. We will power down our weapons and submit to your authority." Hawthorne nodded slowly. "A wise choice, Admiral. Power down your weapons and shields. Our boarding parties will secure your vessels and escort you to detention facilities where you'll be treated in accordance with the Terran Conventions on the treatment of prisoners of war. You and your crews will not be harmed if you comply. Resist, and we will respond with appropriate force." "I understand. Admiral, if I may ask, your planet, your species, you presented yourselves as weak, divided, primitive. Why?" Hawthorne smiled slightly.
Because we wanted to see what you do, Admiral. First contact with an alien species is a momentous occasion. We needed to know if you came in peace or war. You chose war. You chose intimidation and threats. So we responded appropriately. Consider this a lesson. Humanity doesn't start fights, Admiral, but we sure as hell finish them.
And if we had come in peace, the Nar asked, if we had offered friendship instead of subjugation?
Then you'd be talking to our diplomats instead of our military, Hawthorne replied, and we'd be discussing trade agreements and cultural exchange instead of terms of surrender. But you made your choice. Actions have consequences.
The transmission ended.
3 weeks later, Secretary General Santos stood before a joint session of Earth's unified government, preparing to address not just humanity, but the broader galaxy. The Valdrin surrender had been complete. Their fleet was now in human custody, their crews being held in detention facilities that, while secure, were significantly more comfortable than they had expected.
More importantly, the Valdrin communications arrays had been repurposed to send a message far beyond Earth's solar system, a message to the hundreds of civilizations that made up the galactic community, most of whom had never heard of humanity before.
Santos spoke clearly and calmly.
People of the galaxy, this is Secretary General Maria Santos of the United Earth Government. You don't know us yet, but you're about to. 3 weeks ago, the Valdrin Empire attempted to intimidate humanity into surrender. They failed. Their fleet is now in our custody. Their personnel are being treated as prisoners of war, and their attempt at conquest has been thoroughly defeated.
She paused, letting that information spread across the light years.
But we're not sending this message to brag or to threaten. We're sending it to make one thing perfectly clear. Earth is not interested in conquest. We are not interested in empire building. We are not interested in subjugating other worlds. What we are interested in is being left alone to develop as we choose, to explore the universe at our own pace, and to interact with other civilizations on terms of mutual respect.
Another pause. However, and this is crucial, we will not tolerate attempts to intimidate us, threaten us, or conquer us. We have spent our entire history preparing for conflict, and we are very, very good at it. The Valdrin Empire learned this lesson the hard way. We hope others will learn from their example.
Santos's expression softened slightly. To those civilizations that value peace, cooperation, and mutual respect, we extend our hand in friendship. We have much to learn from you, and perhaps something to teach as well. We look forward to meeting you under better circumstances than war. To those who might view us as targets for conquest or intimidation, rethink. Earth may be new to the galactic community, but we are not helpless, and we are not afraid. Come to us in peace, and you'll find us generous. Come to us in war, and you'll find out why we survived 10,000 years of fighting each other. This is humanity's introduction to the galaxy. We hope it's the beginning of a long and peaceful relationship with our neighbors, but we're prepared for the alternative.
Earth out. The response from the galactic community was immediate and varied. The Zenthari Federation, an alliance of peaceful trading species, immediately sent a diplomatic envoy with gifts and offers of cultural exchange. The Moravian Collective, a scientific civilization, requested academic collaboration. The Free Worlds Assembly, a loose confederation of independent planets, sent congratulations and a friendly warning about the galactic core powers. But the most significant response came from the Krethrin Dominion, one of the galaxy's major powers and a civilization that had spent millennia perfecting warfare of their own. Their message was brief. Humanity. We acknowledge your strength.
We respect your capabilities. We propose a non-aggression pact and mutual defense treaty. Species that can fight rarely need to. Species that cannot fight always face invasion. We believe we understand each other. Let us speak further.
Admiral Hawthorne, reviewing the message in his office on the UEDS constellation, smiled. "They get it," he said to General Morrison, who was visiting from Earth. "They understand the fundamental rule."
Si vis pacem, para bellum, Morrison quoted. If you want peace, prepare for war.
Exactly. The Valdren thought intimidation would work because it had always worked before. They'd built an empire on making species too afraid to fight back. But they'd never faced someone who refused to be intimidated.
Morrison nodded. What do you think will happen to their empire now?
With their primary fleet captured and their tactics exposed, I'd guess it collapses within a year. All those subjugated worlds are going to see what happened here and realize they don't have to accept Valdren rule. There's going to be a wave of liberation movements across their territory. And we're going to support those movements? Hawthorne considered. Diplomatically? Absolutely. We'll offer whatever non-military support they need, but we're not going to fight their wars for them. That's not our role. We defended ourselves. They'll have to free themselves. But we can help make sure the Valdren don't have the strength to retaliate. Speaking of the Valdren, what are we doing with Thexnar and his crews? Prisoner exchanges are already being negotiated. The various species the Valdren had enslaved are very interested in putting certain Valdren leaders on trial. The Talixnar will likely face a war crimes tribunal. But that's not our jurisdiction. We'll hand him over to the appropriate authorities once they're established. Morrison looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. It's strange, isn't it? We spent a century preparing for first contact, building all these weapons and ships, hoping we'd never need them. And then the first aliens we meet are exactly the kind we built them to fight. Maybe not strange, Hawthorne replied. Maybe inevitable. The galaxy is a big place. There are bound to be predators out there. We just had to make sure we were the apex predator in our neighborhood. 6 months after the Valdren surrender, Earth hosted its first Galactic Summit. Representatives from 43 different civilizations gathered in Geneva to meet humanity formally and to discuss the changing galactic order. The Valdren Empire had indeed collapsed, just as predicted. Dozens of formerly subjugated worlds had declared independence. Some had formed new alliances. Others had requested Earth's assistance in building defensive forces of their own. Humanity had obliged, selling weapons technology and offering military training, but always with strict conditions about how those weapons could be used. At the summit's opening ceremony, Secretary General Santos addressed the assembled delegates. 6 months ago, most of you didn't know we existed. Now we're hosting you on our homeworld, welcoming you as friends and partners. This is not how we imagined first contact would go, but perhaps it's fitting. Humanity has always learned best from adversity. She gestured to the various delegates, beings of every imaginable shape and size, from methane-breathing crystalline entities to beings of pure energy contained in mechanical bodies. We stand at a crossroads in galactic history. The old order, where empires ruled through intimidation and force, is crumbling. In its place, we have an opportunity to build something better. Not a human empire, we don't want one. Not a galactic government, we're not ready for that. But perhaps a community of free worlds, united by common values rather than common threats. Humanity offers this. We will defend the right of all sentient species to self-determination. We will oppose conquest and subjugation wherever we find it. We will share our knowledge with those who seek peace and prosperity. And we will stand as a shield against those who would prey upon the weak. One of the delegates,
Ambassador Vrex of the Kthren Dominion stood to speak. The Kthren were massive beings, towering and armored, their civilization built on warrior values.
Secretary General Santos, Vrex's translated voice boomed. The Kthren have dominated our region of space for 3,000 years. We have done so through strength of arms and clarity of purpose. When we first learned of humanity's defeat of the Valdren, we expected to meet another warrior race, another civilization of conquerors. Instead, we find something we did not expect: warriors who choose not to make war.
Vrex bowed, a gesture of deep respect in Kthren culture.
This is true strength. The Kthren Dominion formally proposes an alliance with Earth, not of master and servant, but of equals. Two warrior civilizations standing together to ensure that strength serves justice rather than oppression.
The chamber erupted in discussion. Other delegates began proposing similar arrangements. The Zenthari offered economic partnerships. The Moravians proposed scientific collaboration. Even some of the smaller, previously subjugated species offered what they could: resources, cultural exchange, support in the galactic community. Santos let the conversation flow for a moment before raising her hand for silence. We accept these offers of friendship and alliance. But let me be clear about one thing. Earth will not be the galaxy's police force. We will not patrol the stars, enforcing our will on others. What we will do is stand as an example that intimidation can be defeated, that bullies can be stopped, that free peoples working together can defend themselves against tyranny. She smiled. The Voldren tried to intimidate humanity. We laughed because we knew something they didn't. Fear is only effective against the fearful. And humanity stopped being afraid of the dark a long time ago. We walked into it, explored it, and learned to make it our own. So to all the civilizations here today, and to those watching from across the galaxy, welcome to the new age. An age where strength is measured not by how many you can conquer, but by how many you can protect. Where power is used not to dominate, but to defend. Where the response to intimidation is not surrender, but laughter. Because there's nothing more human than laughing in the face of fear and then doing what needs to be done anyway.
The summit continued for 3 more weeks, establishing the frameworks for what would eventually become the Free Galactic Alliance, a voluntary association of independent worlds committed to mutual defense and cooperation. Earth didn't dominate the alliance, it was merely one member among equals. But everyone knew that humanity's military strength guaranteed that the alliance would never be intimidated by the old empire. Aboard the UES Constellation, Admiral Hawthorne reviewed reports from across human space. The home defense fleet had been reorganized into multiple task forces. The deep space patrol fleets were expanding their range, making contact with new civilizations, showing the flag, but always in friendship rather than conquest. His aide, Commander Chen, brought him the latest intelligence summary. Admiral, our long-range sensors have detected what might be another empire forming in the galactic south, the Zrathi hegemony. Early reports suggest they're aggressive, expansionist. They've conquered a dozen systems in the past decade. Hawthorne nodded thoughtfully. Distance? 800 light-years. Not an immediate threat, but they're moving in our general direction. Keep monitoring them. If they approach Free Galactic Alliance space, we'll need to make the same offer we made to the Valdren: peace or consequences. Preferably peace. And if they choose war? Hawthorne smiled grimly. Then they'll learn the same lesson. You can't intimidate someone who refuses to be afraid. And humanity has had a lot of practice at refusing to be afraid. Chen hesitated. Sir,
Do you ever worry that we're becoming what we fought against? We've built this massive military force. We're projecting power across hundreds of light years. How are we different from the empires?
It was a fair question, and Hawthorne took a moment to consider his answer carefully. The difference, Commander, is choice. The Valdren gave their subjects no choice, submit or die. We give everyone a choice, peace or war, cooperation or conflict. We don't demand tribute, we don't subjugate, we don't conquer. We simply make it clear that we will not be conquered. That's not empire, that's sovereignty.
And if others see us as a threat anyway? Then we'll deal with that when it comes. But we'll do it openly, honestly, and in accordance with our values. We'll never fire the first shot. We'll never initiate conquest. But we'll always finish what someone else starts.
Chen nodded, satisfied with the answer.
Outside the viewport, the stars shone with the promise of infinite possibilities. Humanity had taken its first real steps onto the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.
The Valdren had tried to intimidate humanity with threats and shows of force. They had expected fear, capitulation, submission. Instead, they got laughter. And in that laughter was a message that would echo across the stars for generations to come. Humanity had arrived, and it would not be cowed, would not be conquered, would not be controlled.